Nebraska has completely flipped their roster. A complete overhaul has begun in Lincoln, Nebraska. We're diving into all the guys that have been added through the portal. We're also going to do our best guess at the depth chart for the offense and for the black shirts. Hello and welcome into another episode of the Cornhusker Huddle. I am your host, Brian Moore. Nebraska's at 16 total commits through the portal. According to On3, they're ranked 36, but Rivals has Nebraska's portal class at 15th, and 247 has Nebraska's class at 6th. On3's rankings are a little weird to me. There's a handful of SEC programs with 3 or 4 or 5 commits from the portal that are somehow ranked ahead of Nebraska. Is there a bias? I think so. That's just me, though. That's just my opinion. Nebraska has 3 of the top 25 guys in the portal per On3, but somehow these teams are ahead of Nebraska. I'm not gonna go on that rant. I could just go on a rant about the bias in their rankings. Nebraska has recently added defensive back from Arizona, Marquise Groves-Killebrew, who we'll get to in a little bit, as well as your bookend right tackle from Alabama, Elijah Pritchett. We'll do a little recap here of the high school rankings, even though this part of the video is going to mainly focus on the portal guys. High school rankings, Nebraska is at 18th on Rivals. We're 22nd on 247, and we are 21st on On3. Nebraska's brought in a plethora of guys in the wide receiver room. They've done a complete overhaul. It was one area, if you recall, way back on our first or second video, we said there was something that was a little fishy about how little wide receivers played in the bowl game. If you recall, Ja'Cory Barney and Jamal Banks played 55 and 54 snaps. The remaining wide receivers, that's including Carter Nelson, who's moved to tight end fully, played 28. That's including Jalen Lloyd, who's now at Oklahoma State. That was a key tell for me that Nebraska was getting ready to flip that wide receiver room. And boy, did they. They brought in Dane Key and Hardly Gilmore from Kentucky. They're following Nebraska wide receiver coach from Kentucky, Da'Keil Shorts. They've brought in Isaiah Hunter from Cal, who had a phenomenal redshirt freshman season. Him and Dane Key will be your starters on the outside receiver spot. At the offensive line, Nebraska's brought in Elijah Pritchett, who we mentioned. Nebraska's still trying to add one more guy on the offensive line. We're talking about, and I'm going to butcher his first name here, Chiesa Pete from New Mexico State. I think he has 1, maybe 2 years of eligibility remaining. He was a first-team all-conference player in 2023. He was hurt in 2024. He played the last 5 or 6, maybe 7 games of the season. He wants to be a left tackle, and so does Pritchett. So I wonder if there is some discourse there. That'd be the only reason why I don't think Nebraska lands Pete. Because when it comes to money, Nebraska's got it. They're going to pay it. You got to protect Dylan Raiola. I think Gunnar Gatula is, if they don't get Pete, he'll be a solid option at right tackle or at left tackle. So I'm not overly worried if we don't get Pete, but as Bill Bush always says, mass kicks ass. Anytime you can get a big body, a big athletic lineman, you take him. On the defensive side, Nebraska has completely overhauled the secondary. Marquise Groves-Killebrew, who we already mentioned, is in. Jameer Khan is coming over from Southern Illinois. Your starting corner opposite of Sierra Wright, Andrew Marshall, coming over from Idaho. And Justin Rhett, who I like as a safety, who played safety at Georgia last season. Nebraska might like him at corner. I've got him at safety on my depth chart. Nebraska has a big roster cut coming. The impending 105 roster, it's not official, but it's likely to go into play. You have to be down to 105. You've got to be there by fall camp. Nebraska sits at about 135, 140 players on their roster. Where do those cuts come from? I think some of them are going to come from the secondary group here. In terms of the defensive line, we brought in Williams Nwaneri, day one starter. He's coming from Missouri. We brought in Gabe Moore from Mississippi State, as well as Jalen George from an FCS school in Tennessee. I believe it was Minnesota. It was East Middle Tennessee State, I believe is where he came from. We still need another defensive tackle. When we show you the depth chart here in a little bit, you're going to see there is just not a lot of depth at that defensive tackle position. At linebacker, Nebraska's added Marquise Watson-Trent. The 3-time all-conference linebacker is coming over from Georgia Southern. He has over 350 career tackles. He will be your starter at middle linebacker. Dasan McCullough is coming over from Indiana/Oklahoma. He could be a guy that plays middle linebacker. He could be a guy that plays rover. He could be a guy that plays outside linebacker or even the jack. Nebraska has him listed at linebacker. On3 has him listed as a safety. So on my depth chart, and you'll see I have him all over the place. It kind of just depends on where he fits in the Nebraska scheme. He's going to find a spot. No question about it. I also included Javen Wright as a guy coming in. The reason I did that is we anticipated Javen Wright not getting his 7th year of eligibility because we all know how stupid the NCAA is. Well, the NCAA proved not to be so stupid this time around. They have granted Javen Wright a 7th year of eligibility. There's one guy that'll be, actually maybe 2 guys on the depth chart that will cover that maybe are a little bit of a surprise. So I'll go ahead and pull it up. We'll just post it all over. You're not going to see my ugly face for a little bit here. We'll start off with the defense. And the reason being is this was like the hardest one for me to project because there's so much new talent coming in. There is so much movement. There's a bunch of different things that are going on the defense. So this is going to be the one that takes the longest to go over. That's why we'll start off here. We're going to start over here on the bottom left-hand side at cornerback. We already mentioned Andrew Marshall. He'll be your starter opposite of Syer Wright. I think the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th spot is really going to be decided probably even into the season. You have Bly Hill, Marquise Groves-Killebrew, and Donovan Jones. They're all battling it out. So I'm not sure who's going to come ahead there. I listed it in the order that I think will happen, but anything is possible between now and August. We're going to jump back over to the safety spot here. You'll see Marquise Buford locking down one spot, and then Malcolm Hartzog will be his backup. Mario Buford or Caleb Benning will be your 3rd or 4th option at safety. At rover, you'll see that I have Dasan McCullough. Backing up him is Ramir Stewart and then Braylon Prude. I think Braylon still has some time to develop, probably a year away at least. The other safety spot, you'll see Malcolm Hartzog starting or Justin Rhett. I am very, very high on Justin Rhett. And then you'll see Mario and Caleb as the 3rd or 4th option again. The other cornerback spot, Syer Wright. Locking that one down. No question about that one. Not even a debate. Amari Sanders or Jameer Khan or Marquise Groves-Killebrew or Donovan Jones. That's going to be your collection of guys. These cornerback spots are interchangeable. They can go from one side or the other. Typically, you'll have that one guy that's like a boundary corner, but a lot of these guys I think could be interchangeable. I think Jameer Khan is going to be probably a slot corner more than likely. Same thing with Marquise Groves-Killebrew, but I didn't want to put a spot for just slot corner. Donovan Jones could move back to safety. They moved him down to the corner spot for the bowl game. There's a lot going on with Donovan Jones where his future is. So I think they're going to keep him at corner. Obviously, the option to go back to safety is possible, but there's solid depth at that safety position. Slide on down to the 2nd level here. Willis McGahee, he's going to hold down your starting spot at the jack. And then Dawson Merritt or Maverick Noonan will be your 2nd and 3rd linebackers, or jack linebackers, I should say. Dawson Merritt had shoulder surgery in the offseason, so I'm not entirely sure if he will be ready to go for spring. Middle linebacker, like we said, Marquise Watson-Trent is going to be your starter. And then I have Javen Wright or Dasan McCullough. If Dasan's starting at rover, he's not going to be your middle linebacker. If someone else is starting at rover, he could be your middle linebacker with Javen and Marquise. Javen Wright's not going to start, but he's going to play plenty of snaps. Javen Wright is a pass coverage linebacker. Him and Dasan both started their careers at safety. So in obvious passing situations, that's where you're going to see Marquise come out and Javen come in. At outside linebacker, we have Vincent Shavers Jr., and then, of course, Javen Wright or Dasan McCullough again. Their pass coverage abilities make them interchangeable at this position, as well at Rover even. I don't think Javen's going to go to Rover. I think that's either Desan or Ramir or Braylon. But their abilities to cover make them an option at outside linebacker, where their depth is a little thin, in my opinion. I have Vincent Genatone on there for the same reason, his ability to cover. He could be a middle linebacker guy. He's 6 foot 220. Maybe he slides back to Rover. Not really sure on Vincent Genatone, but I think he's got a bright future. That's why I wanted to include him on this depth chart. That way we could talk a little bit about him. At defensive end, we're going to go right below the outside linebackers there. Defensive end and edge, Cam Lenhart or Keona Davis, followed by Jalen George. And then this is our big concern. Defensive tackle, nose tackle. Really, you have Riley Van Poppel and Elijah Judy. Those are your two proven guys. Riley could be a guy that pops out over to the edge spot like they did with Ty Robinson. Sua Fotu or Gabe Moore will be rotational guys at best at defensive tackle / nose tackle. The heavy sets, the goal line, the short yarded situations, they'll come in and play as well. And then to finish us out, defensive end / edge on the other side, Williams Nwarni, Cam Lenhart, or Keona Davis will finish out that side. Over to the offense. We're going to start out with the obvious quarterback. Dylan Raiola, followed by Jalen Gramstad, Marcus Davia, and TJ Lateef. And then running back, Emma Johnson, Jamarian Parker, and I should have flipped this next one here. It should say Quentin Ives or Connor Booth, and then Mekhi Nelson. Those are your power backs, those 6'1", 6'2", 210, 220 pound running backs. So I meant to put Quentin Ives or Connor Booth and then Mekhi Nelson, because Mekhi falls into that Emmett Johnson, Jamarian Parker shape, mold, skill set, all that stuff. We'll slide out to the left side here. We'll cover outside receiver. I think Dane Key, Quinn Clark, or Jonah Wilson. This is the guy I said might be a little surprise. Jonah Wilson is a receiver at Houston. He's in the portal. He visited Nebraska last week. He was recruited by Dana Holgerson and Akil Shorts at Houston. I'm expecting him to become a Cornhusker. At slot receiver, we have Ja'Cory Barney, Hardin Gilmore, and Janiron Bonner / Cortez Mills or Cortez Mills. Janiron's going to be like the guy that comes in motion across and blocks or releases for a quick out. Cortez Mills is going to be your guy that stretches the field. That's why I have Janiron or Cortez. We'll keep going left to right. Left tackle, I'm expecting Nebraska to land Pete, so I threw him on the depth chart. This might come back to bite me if my luck continues. If we don't land Pete, you'll have Gunnar Gatula and Teddy Prohaska. At left guard, Justin Evans-Jenkins, Turner Corcoran, and Gibson Pyle. Center, we got Sam Sledge holding it down. Third year in the program, time for him to make that move to full-time starter at center. His backup will be Justin Evans-Jenkins, and then I think Preston Taumua might be an option at center. He could be a guard as well. Henry Latofsky is your starter at right guard, followed by Tyler Knack or Jason Shake Shack Machacek. Right tackle, Elijah Pritchett, followed by Brock Knutson and Tyler Knack. Tight end, we have Luke Lindenmeyer or Heinrich Harburg, Carter Nelson or Mac Markway. Luke and Mac are very similar in their skill set. They're going to be your inline, hand in the dirt tight ends. Heinrich and Carter are going to be your pass catching tight ends. Can Luke and Mark catch it? Absolutely. That's not a question. It's just more their game is blocking at tight end. Heinrich and Carter are your athletic guys. Get them in the slot. Get them the ball in space. Quick passes. Big guys. They're going to be your pass catchers primarily at tight end. And then to wrap it up, at the other outside receiver spot, I have Isaiah Hunter, Keelan Smith, and Isaiah Mosey. I am going to quickly bring back up this defensive depth chart because I forgot the top right corner here, your wild cards. Desan McCullough, linebacker Rover. Where does he fit? Where does he play? That's why he's a wild card. And here's the other surprise that I can't believe I forgot, and now I'm glad I remembered. Deshaun Singleton. He has an extra year. The ruling about JUCO players JUCO years not counting for players towards their NCAA eligibility has changed things. Deshaun has committed to play in NFL All-Star games, but he has not played or done any of that stuff yet. So he has that option to come back. We should hear something on that in the future, shortly too, like in the next handful of days, maybe a week. And then I included Justin Brett because, like I said, he could be a safety, he could be a corner. It just depends on where Nebraska sees him fit. That's all I've got for today. Thank you for joining me. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Who did I leave off on the depth chart? Who did I have on the depth chart that you don't agree with at all? Love to know your thoughts. Love to know your opinions. Stay tuned. I have a Nebraska basketball preview coming out tomorrow. That game against Purdue is on Sunday, so we're going to preview that game. Tip-off is set for 11 a.m. Thank you for joining me today, and welcome in to the Cornhusker Huddle.